right, so today we're wrapping up our unit on Common Pool Resources. This last author that we read, Eleanor Ostrom, she's a bit different than the other authors that we've looked at in this course so far, in that her approach is quite a bit less theoretical and a lot more empirical. The book that we read an excerpt from, Governing the Commons, is kind of considered to be a modern classic of economics. And what Ostrom did is to study various communities around the world that have been successful in managing their resources and passing down their resources from generation to generation. Now, these communities are widely dispersed around the globe, from Switzerland to the Philippines to Japan, and the challenges that they face in the local conditions are very different. But what they have in common is that they found stable solutions that have endured for centuries. And a lot of the time these solutions, well, most of the time these solutions are not the economically optimal ones. Like, you could come in and design a system that would be more efficient, but what's important is that they have been so remarkably stable and they've lasted for a long time. I mean, a lot of them are much older than this country that we're in even is. So these solutions, they're very diverse in some aspects. Their exact details vary from place to place depending on exactly what the local conditions are and exactly what the challenges that they face are, what the resource that they're trying to manage is. But what they have in common is that they haven't resorted to private ownership and they haven't appealed to government authority. In other words, the common pool resources have remained common pool resources. It's just that the local people manage access to them. Now, Ostrom has identified 7 principles that she thinks are universal across these kind of communities. And, she talks about those there, and I talk about them in the slides as well. But what I think is the most remarkable one, the one that's really important, is that the people who are making and enforcing these rules are the very same people who are actually using the resources. And I think that's been really important in ensuring that these kind of solutions remain stable. So when you consider Ostrom's work and what she has to say, there's a few questions that we might ask. One is, what can we learn from these design principles? Can we implement these ourselves in order to help us manage resources? And the other thing is, are these solutions going to scale up? So the situations that she's talking about are fairly small scale ones. She's talking about pasture lands in Switzerland, plots of farmland or communal forests in Japan, things like that. I think about the largest one was the irrigation systems in Spain, which cover a fairly large area, but they're not like on a national scale or anything by any means. So the question is, can we institute local solutions like this to handle very large problems? Like, again, climate change is one that comes to mind as probably being the largest problem that we face and one of the most serious. But, the question is whether these design principles are applicable at that level, or whether we're able to handle problems like that by instituting local solutions, because this seems like a global problem where everybody's kind of tied together. So these are some issues to think about. On Friday, we'll talk some more about them. On Wednesday, we're going to move on to population ethics, which is an issue that's already been kind of foreshadowed a bit in this unit, but there will be some more discussion of commons tragedies on Friday. And by the way, I won't be there on Friday with you because the other instructor for this course, Lisa, she'll be back from her duty with the Army Reserves on Friday, and so you'll get to meet her.